China is Iran's most powerful backer, both economically and politically. The superpower has denounced the US-Israel military action against Iran, but it hasn't mounted any military defence for Iran. And it comes as the annual National People's Congress gets underway in Beijing. With more, here's James Laurenceson, who's director of the Australia-China Relations Institute at the University of Technology, Sydney. Good to see you, James.
Good to be with you.
So what has China said so far then about the US-Israel strikes on Iran?
Well, I think its rhetoric has ramped up over the last few days. Initially, it was quite muted. It simply said it was highly concerned. But after that, it said that it condemned the killings of the Iranian leader and also civilians. And more recently, it's made very clear that it sees the US and Israel in violation of international law.
China, though, hasn't come to Iran's aid, has it? Would you expect it to?
No, I wouldn't. No, and it's interesting because I think there are many people who do, but China is not like the US. The US sees itself as having global interests, a global policeman, and having formal security alliances. China doesn't see itself in those terms. Its security interests are closer to home, and it doesn't want hard security alliances like the US does.
So with the US military assets and attention focused on the Middle East, does this leave the Indo-Pacific vulnerable? Is that part of China's strategy in playing this game?
I wouldn't call it part of China's strategy. I mean, China is really just watching this happen. I mean, as I said before, China's security interests are focused on this region. And in this region, frankly, it's big enough and powerful enough to stand up to the US by itself. It doesn't really need allies, particularly not allies like Iran. Most wargame exercises, for example, that come out of Washington, not Beijing, actually see the US losing a clash against China in the Taiwan Strait, for example.
But if the US military action is long-lasting, and President Trump certainly says that it will be, what does that mean for the US arsenal of missiles and other ammunition, and the US capability in the event of a Chinese assault on Taiwan?
Yeah, well, plainly it's depleting the US arsenal, and we shouldn't forget that China's manufacturing capability is already double that of the United States. There was some interesting analysis that just came out the last week that said over the last 5 years, China has managed to triple its nuclear-powered submarine production compared with the previous 5 years. It now produces more than the US. So that's the risk for Australia, because we really are very much firmly tied up in the AUKUS exercise, which assumes that we'll have the capability behind the strategy, but it's not actually clear that we will.
As we're seeing live pictures there from Beijing. James, the National People's Congress begins today. Is the war likely to feature there?
No. When Xi Jinping wakes up every morning, domestic issues are really his first, second and third priority. International issues come after that. Look, indirectly, certainly it will convince, this turbulent international environment will convince the Chinese leadership that they were right in emphasising self-reliance and minimising risks from overseas. But that won't be the focus.
How did China behave during the Iraq war in the early 2000s? Did it take advantage of Washington being distracted back then?
I wouldn't say it took advantage. I would say it was happy for the US to allow itself to get distracted, as any country would. And so much of its rhetoric was the same as then as it is now. And I imagine China is not upset by the US potentially dragging itself into another conflict in the Middle East.
The US President is due to go to Beijing at the end of the month. Do you think that visit will happen if the war is continuing, as it seems it will be?
Yeah, I do, because I think both sides recognise whatever is happening in the Middle East at the moment, China and the US are the two most important countries in the world. They're locked into a structural, long-term strategic competition, but neither side wants to get into a war. They actually see areas of mutual benefit in their relationship as well. So at the same time as having differences on diplomatic issues and military issues like we're seeing in Iran now, they've also got some common interests that they'll want to further as well.
James Laurenceson, thank you and thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.